Welcome back to adfreeshows.com. This is our That Was Extreme post show. We need to come up with a clever name for this one, guys. I'm open to suggestions. Blue Meanie. I'm going to charge you with that task. Give us a good name for this one before the next one. We're doing this the first of every month, which will coincide with the release of the That Was Extreme podcast. So go ahead and mark it on your Ad Free Shows calendar, available at boxofgimmicks.com. Also, if you are watching this on our Patreon feed, make sure you upgrade. Our My Push members and Top Guy members get to do stuff like this all the time. So join us in time for the next one. I want to say hello to Shernoff, Meanie, and Gertner. How are you guys doing tonight?
Excellent. I am
well.
Yeah.
I am well.
Yes.
Meanie, I'm gonna steal the heat.
Okay.
I'm gonna blow up your whole spot. I'm gonna make a recommendation.
Okay.
That was extra or that was extraneous.
Oh.
Hey man, it's all you, buddy.
I like those.
Takes the
those.
pressure off me.
Whichever one of those Conrad likes better. Big Pod Daddy.
Who invited Conrad to this show? I think I'm gonna have to pick. Thank you very much for those suggestions.
Lauren, you should pick.
Thank you. I always do. So let's get into this one. This week we had an episode. I enjoyed it. I know that a lot of our friends probably listened to it as soon as it dropped. Tell me first off, you guys, what were you most excited to cover this week on this episode?
I was, anytime we get to talk about ECW, I take a little extra pride in the fact that before I was in ECW, I was a fan. And, I might not have been wrestling at the time, and I might not have been in ECW, hence I was not in the business at the time, but I was a fan. And before I was in ECW and before I moved away to train for a year, I watched the product every week and I went to the shows. So I was able to give an aspect of this is what it was like to be an ECW fan, before, I was there when there were half the arena was empty and they're begging people, hey, if you want to be on TV, fill the bleachers, to the point where we had this show the night the line was crossed, which was ECW's first legit sellout of over 1,000 people. So to give that aspect of the show was really neat.
I did think it was really interesting that you guys were not directly involved in this one, but had so much great context to share with us on this week's episode of the podcast. So let's kick this one off with the WMD himself, who has a question for us.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Hey.
What's up?
Oh, nothing much. I'm just eating dinner. Anyway,
What are you having?
Did you bring some for the rest of us?
Oh no, I'm a rude bastard.
Son of a bitch.
Where'd the corn come from? I never know.
So I got a question about just the production of ECW, because that's always been, as a being a mom and pop shop,
yeah,
and whatnot. You got any good stories about the production value of the ECW, or maybe some stories about Ron Buffone?
Ron Buffone of Ron and Charlie fame, behind the scenes. It's just it was everything we did was quasi illegal. From filming on the streets of New York City without permits, just running gun, and then just the lack of production of doing promos at the hotel at the Travel Lodge after the show till 7 a.m, stuff like that. But as a production, I have friends who are in WWE, who work for the network, and they often hit me up asking about certain things about the ECW TV, or the certain wrestlers on the show and stuff like that, because Paulie didn't believe in run sheets.
Mm-hmm.
As anybody who worked for Paulie knew, he usually wrote the show on the way to the show on the back of a napkin or a pizza box. So when WWE acquired the tapes, they were pulling their hair out because none of the tapes came with a run sheet of commercials, this, that, and the other thing. So they're I have a few folks going, Meanie, who is this guy? So I'm the resident go-to whatever. But dude, just the production, like, Paul said in the Rise and Fall ECW, if we don't have the best pyro, why focus on that? Show the best action in the ring that we could. One thing I like to put over, it's not technically production, but like those early days of ECW when the shows were a little bit wilder, we were so lucky to have at the time ECW was Eastern Championship Wrestling, was lucky to have landlords like Butchie D'Amato, who said, break whatever you want as long as you fix it. So guys would go through drywall, and the crowd would go ape shit, and Paul would have to give them like $50 to buy some new drywall to fix the wall so they could have the bingo later on that night with the little blue-haired old ladies.
Hey, what's wrong with blue hair?
Hey, I'm in Clark Kent mode right now, so.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for answering my question, and I've been really enjoying the podcast so far.
Oh, thanks for listening, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Mark Nelson has a question as well. Hello, Mark.
Well, hi there, Lauren. How are you?
You are such a dream. I'm well, thank you. What you got for the guys?
Fantastic. Well, question for Joel. Joel, where did you come up, or how do you come up with all your different introductions? You always had me in stitches and sometimes in trouble for repeating them. So thanks for that one. How'd you do that?
Case by case. Some of them right before game time, and some of them maybe a week in advance. One time I woke up in the middle of the night, had one come to me in a dream, had pen and paper handy by the bedside, jotted it down, and went right back to sleep and said, when I wake up, that's one less thing I have to do. So, yeah, kind of case by case. Sometimes I'd only have about half hour or 45 minutes to memorize them because they came to me that night. And sometimes I'd just memorize them during the week. And a lot of it would depend on if there was any kind of pop culture, or I think we might have addressed it maybe on last month's show. I'm not sure that the Stud Muffin scoring system was based on whatever sports game, that week that the big Philadelphia team had lost, and that would be the score that the Dudleys won by. So, yeah, just
by a lot. I know quite a lot.
yeah. So, yeah, case by case.
Okay.
Yeah, we were pretty good with being topical. My favorite part of ECW is like NWO. NWO was taking a shot at ECW on Monday Nitro saying, oh, something about a bingo hall. And the next week, me, Stevie Nova came out with bingo cards, tossing them out to the crowd, as Joey says, as advertised on Monday nights.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for doing the podcast. Really enjoy it. You had a lot of good insight.
Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark Nelson. Anthony Pyrus, you are up next.
Hey guys, how are you doing tonight?
What's up,
What's
brother?
up, man?
Down.
Mr. Shernoff, I got to give you some credit. You do a great job keeping those two guys in line. Joel, I'm greatly enjoying listening to 13-year-old you on a Rezzy's Pro Wrestling Spotlight. But the main question I have tonight is for the Meanie, because he was, far as I know, Joel, he was the one who was actually there that night at the night the line was crossed. You were not there, am I correct?
I wasn't. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Meanie, I've heard some stories, and forgive me, it didn't seem to come off this way during the show. I heard that the last 15 minutes of the main event triple threat, three-way dance, but in the main event was so heated and so emotional. The crowd was going crazy. I actually heard somebody fainted during the last 15 minutes or so of that match. What was, from your perspective, and you were very pragmatic in talking about what happened that night.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of give an idea as to what the real crowd heat was, the crowd emotion was in those last 15 minutes, please?
If I may, Meanie doesn't remember because he is in fact the one who fainted. So I'm sorry. Go.
Fair enough.
Dude, it was just it was one of those watershed moments. Much like it was to go through the motions, not go through the motions, but go through for the ride that led up to Barely Legal. As a wrestler, as a fan, a lot of us, had been watching ECW when they were running shows in front of 30 people at Cabrini College, you know, and those early TV tapings, you know. So it went from being, being a part of something that was, the Philly wrestling scene was always cool. You know, there was, the South Philly crew of fans, South Jersey fans, and we all got together and went to ECW. But, to watch those shows where, they're basically giving out free hot dogs and beer to, get you in the building, to having free TV tapings after the main show the night before. But then like you start, and then again, when Bob Ortiz gets on the mic, everybody fill the bleachers, if you want to be on TV, where, half the building's empty. So they try to get everybody over. And you're standing there and you're watching. And it also might have added to the atmosphere to show that there was fans all around, because a lot of times wrestlers get more nervous performing in front of smaller crowds than larger crowds, because when a crowd's more spread out, they're less likely to react, because they don't want to be the first person to pop, because the rest of the crowd will turn around and look at them. Whereas if there's a crowd in there and you're all jam packed together, elbow to elbow, one person pops and it sets off a chain reaction. So everything we were experiencing that night was a part of that chain reaction of, there was well over 1,000 people there. And that was like the most any of us as a fan had seen in that building. So it was kind of like a cool moment just to realize that we were part of something special. That main event match was kind of like a live action Quentin Tarantino movie. There's people, there's the main participants, and somebody went away, came back, and then there's the supporting cast of Ian and Axel Rotten running in, and then they went away, and then they came back, and 911, here's Paul, all this in and out and stuff like that. You didn't know where to look. But it was done in such a way that you could easily follow along. Yeah. So when, crowds usually shit on draws, what I'm saying?
Of course. Yes. Yep.
They're like, oh, this is the easy way out, shitty way. But the fans were
in the right circumstance, they could be amazing. In the right circumstance, they could be incredible. I love Flair, but I thought he overdid it way too much in the 80s.
Right. And this is one of those circumstances, because we knew this was a young company. A lot of us had a connection to the predecessor, Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, which went away. And then, it started off hot and kind of fizzled out, overspending money, much like ECW later on. But like we went through the TWA phase where it went away. But ECW kind of started in reverse, where it started off small and it was building up to this. And we felt like we were a part of something unique. And you could just feel that. And once they said the time limit had expired, and, in those last couple seconds, Terry Funk's going for a flurry of pins, and you could feel the emotion, and you're like, you're in your seat. You're like this, with all, the near falls and stuff. And
I love the fact how you said that when the match was over, they didn't call it a draw. There was no winner. That was a great move. I don't know if that was something Paul Heyman came up with on the fly or our test decided on, but it was a perfect way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One last question. Yep.
Sorry. Sure. No, go ahead.
One last question. I know I don't want to take everybody's time. Who do you like Sunday, and why is it Tom Brady? Go Pats!
That was awesome.
I will say, it's kind of a passing of the torch moment, for the Super Bowl, the guy who's been at the top with the guy who's probably going to be the future, and a guy I consider to probably be the next guy to transcend his sport, from football to, but that's just me, how Jordan transcended basketball and became this icon. I think Mahomes can do that just as well. He's so inspirational the way he plays,
But he's got to get by the GOAT first. To be the man, you got to beat the man.
Sometimes they sacrifice goats. I don't know.
Thanks, guys.
I love you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate your passion, and that's as long as you got passion, I'm all aboard.
I hate to be the one to break this news to you, Anthony, but Brady doesn't play for the Pats anymore.
It doesn't matter.
It matters. It matters. And we're not going to cheer for him. Okay,
28-3, Lauren. 28-3.
Okay, I'm going to mute you now. Thank you.
Or I could say
My-
41-33 Eagles. The Eagles beat them in the Super Bowl,
There you go. You're right. I love this. Okay. It should have been the year before. It should have been my birds, not yours. We'll take it. Whatever. Michael McClanahan, bring us back to wrestling. Why are we talking about football? It makes me angry.
No
Bring us
problem.
There's so many parallels,
Well, good evening, everyone. I hope you're all having a good day. I had a quick question. And to put it in context, I was actually born in 1995. So I was born after this event took place. So I really enjoy hearing about your podcast and listening to the stories you guys have to tell about ECW because I haven't heard a lot of them before, which leads me into my question, which is, do you think that there's kind of a narrative that ECW is just this blood and guts promotion where there wasn't a lot of emphasis on actual wrestling? Because the story that I loved from today's show was when you were talking about Tommy Dreamer wrestling Jimmy Superfly Snuka and kind of how that was the way legends were used in ECW. So I guess to summarize my question, it's, do you think there are misconceptions about what ECW was? Why do you think there's those misconceptions? And what do you think some of them are?
Who wants to start? You want me to start?
I'll start with the one with the least important opinion. But I just, as a fan of ECW, I think there's absolutely a misconception. I think part of it is because, history is written by the victors. So, WWE has put out, they put out a great DVD about it, but there was a narrative to that. And the narrative is always going to be, they were less than this, they were less than that. They didn't have what we had, and they had these other things like the blood and guts, and we just took the best parts of that and made it the Attitude Era. And so I think that there's that aspect, but I also think it's so much of Extreme Championship Wrestling in a lot of ways. To me as a fan, I always looked at it as like ECW was somewhat responsible for that narrative as well, because that was almost what was kind of getting people in the door. That was what was setting them apart. So you come in because you hear there's going to be some crazy violence, and then you're blown away by some athleticism while you're there. So that I do think, Michael, what you're saying is, I think that's fair to say that there is a misconception, unless you really dive deep into ECW and you see, from times when, Eddie was there and Malenko and whatnot, there's some incredible wrestling that came out of that. But then everyone became more familiar with them in WCW and kind of, gave WCW that whole cruiserweight thing, even though that pretty much started in ECW. But that's just my opinion. Joel, Meanie?
We were trying to give people a 9-course meal, and we were trying to give them a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we were trying to give them a little bit of lucha, but because we were Extreme, we wanted it to be the next generation, the evolution of lucha. So it was Extreme Lucha. We would give people a throwback to Mid-South, but it was a generation evolved. It was Extreme Mid-South. And when it came to Japan, we would give people all of it, but Japan was so crazy at that time with FMW and whatever else that we were just trying to keep up with them. But it was meant to be a smorgasbord, a buffet, a 9-course meal, but amped up on 12 so that it lived up to the name of Extreme Championship Wrestling.
And like I've said before, had ECW survived that shitty TV deal and got on our network and continued to run shows, I'm pretty confident ECW would have became more like Ring of Honor. They would have dialed down some of the harder edge stuff, because they kind of did away with some stuff. But I think, had they survived and became more mainstream, I think they would have became more like a Ring of Honor and stuff like that, which is kind of fitting since Gabe Sapolsky worked for ECW and he went on to book Ring of Honor as well. And he was Paulie's protege. So, a lot of the criticisms of ECW are coming from the people who watch the sizzle reel and see the commercials. And in the commercials, they always show you the best parts, the most over the top parts, with the violence and stuff like that. But once you see the context of the show, again, you see Guerrero Malenko, then you see Rob Van Dam, Jerry Lynn through the years, and there was great wrestling on those shows. And I was with the company for 2.5 years. So, almost, 3 years, almost 3 years to the date. And before I went to WWE, and I watched all those shows, and those shows weren't all garbage matches. There was some brawls, again, because Paulie, went through Memphis, and but we borrowed from so many different people, but made it more modern. So yeah, a lot of people will criticize ECW off highlights and stuff like that, but the shows themselves, you saw some great wrestling.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. I really enjoy what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to next month's podcast.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Michael, be sure to bring your ID next time so that we can make sure you get in the door, Mr. Youngster. Up next is Joey Carr. How are you this evening, Joey?
Where are we at?
I'm okay. Okay today. I've got 2 comments and a question. My first comment is thank you, Josh, for drawing my name yesterday for his number 1 in the Royal Rumble drawings, men's Royal Rumble drawing. So I want a free t-shirt.
You tell me what shirt you want, and we'll be sending it over. We did a fun thing for Mind of the Meanie. Yeah, on the Patreon, we did a fun little Rumble raffle. And yeah, congratulations.
Woohoo!
Yes, I'm glad WWE switched the numbers around at last minute. And then I love the show. I loved it last week, and I loved it this week, last month and this month. And my question is, you touched on a little bit with the differences and the people kicking out of finishes, but Meanie, how do you feel? And Gertner, you can touch on it too. How do you feel about the differences between stuff like that and how it is nowadays, where you have a match like Goldberg and Drew, where it's basically a finisher fest? Because I don't like it.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Brock Lesnar booking in a way, where Brock's matches usually start with the heat of some sort, where somebody hits the big move and it's just a sell fest from there on, and then they're hitting big moves. Because I really don't I don't think you're ever going to see Brock do a tackle, drop down, hip toss, leapfrog, get it again. So they do the big moves and stuff like that. So when it comes to and that's evolved over where you kind of have to do the same thing with Goldberg, because Goldberg's not going to do fish out of water spot or all these different spots. Goldberg's matches have to be high impact. So it's good for what it is, as long as you keep it short, short and sweet. And I think the timing on last night's match was good. I think if it went any longer, it could have been disastrous, but they did good with what they had. And I think overall last night's event was really good.
I do agree there.
I'm sorry. No, what were we saying?
I do agree there. I think it was a good show.
Yeah.
And Joel.
I agree with Meanie, and I think Joey, I agree with you as well. I noticed, just like you did specifically about the Drew Goldberg match, that it was kind of like, to me, an All Japan Pro Wrestling 26-minute main event minus the first 20 minutes. So yeah, I caught that too. But yeah, I think it couldn't have been much better than it was, and I think it could have been a whole lot worse. And that's kind of, I don't mean that to be a sideways compliment. I just mean that to be, just the nature of the beast, and nothing against either guy, but I think they made the most out of what they had. I agree.
Cool. How's that for you, Joey Carr?
I liked it. Thank you.
Congratulations on your big
I would like to say that I think Brock Lesnar could have better matches he used to, and I wish they'd go back to his better booking that he had before he came back. His booking that he had in this most recent run. I wish he had his first run booking.
I hear you.
I agree.
We're all the best bookers, aren't we? I'm kidding. I'm totally
The day
kidding.
after.
There you go. We're armchair quarterbacking back to football again. So since you guys talked about the Roman Reigns match last night, and we had a little bit of, something unexpected take place, I also, when listening to That Was Extreme today, something really caught my attention with the rope breaking during the Smith and Awesome match. So when something unexpected, be it something that could be really dangerous like that, or just something that's a little embarrassing like what we saw last night, how do you, as a performer in the ring, how do you react to that? And what are some of the challenges that come with kind of reacting on the spot?
In my situation, it's happened to me where, and thankfully it happened in the go home. We were already going. I was wrestling a gentleman named Chris Crude, who is a 500-pound Chippendale, which is funny. Me and him were working together, and then all of a sudden Big Vis started doing his gimmick, and we're like, son of a bitch. He was doing Big Vis before Big Vis, with the suspenders and all that stuff. But thank God we were already in the go home, and thank God my training took over. Because I was always taught, when you hit the rope, grab the rope, pull yourself into it instead of just straight out hitting it. Holding that rope makes a difference between you staying in the ring and being in the 7th row, And I've seen it happen on other shows too. I saw JYD take a fucking baby tumbles bump out of the ring, when the rope snapped. It's not pretty. But for my reaction, my instincts just took over because, the best thing you could do as a wrestler is listen to the fans. And when I hit that rope, the rope snapped in such a way, my feet stayed on the mat, but it looked like my whole body swung over and it looked like my head hit the side of the ring. And I heard the crowd go, "Oh!" So I was like, I'm just playing dead. And I melted like Bugs Bunny going down a flight of steps and just laid there. And thankfully, Chris Crude, who was, young in the business, he ran over and hit me with the Abdul the Butcher elbow and just hooked a leg and took it home. And I just knew from the reaction, I'm just going to lay here while they fix the ring around me. And John Finnegan from ECW runs in. You okay? I'm like, I'm just going to lay here and sell. And they were playing my, Crude left, and then they started playing my music. As I got up, I got the pity applause, kind of like when they cart somebody off the field and he gives the thumbs up. They're like, "Oh, he's alive." I got one of those. So, but yeah, it's scary shit, man. And talk about Mike Awesome. It was so weird that he went from being this killer. He folded JT Smith in half. And then he's going to kill the ref with 2 power bombs, goes for a bump, and it's like, so it's just, thankfully he didn't lose any steam from that because they kept replaying the dive over and over, and that became part of the entrance of the show. So people kind of forgot about it, but that's scary shit. It is.
I'll say I've never been in the ring, but I can only imagine. To our friends at Ad Free Shows, if you haven't had the opportunity yet to listen to episode 1 of the Kurt Angle podcast, you will get to hear how Kurt managed and dealt with kind of an unexpected, crazy situation at WrestleMania 19. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. Dave in the QC, tell me what you're talking about. And it better not be the Bucks, because I'm about sick of hearing from you, okay?
Go Bucks.
Bye.
It's going to be a good weekend. Quick question I had was, when you are, at ECW and at that time, Eastern Championship Wrestling, it's a smaller organization, independent. What's it like when you have guys like Terry Funk and Kevin Sullivan and Mr. Hughes and Jimmy Snuka in the locker room for the guys that are just kind of getting their start in the business, and to see those big names and be on the show with those guys?
I can't speak to ECW, but I can speak to being a wrestler in the indies with significantly larger stars than me in a locker room.
Well, you came up in OVW with Drew McIntyre and
Well, Drew wasn't a star back then. He was,
well, you got to see his journey.
Yeah. But I mean, he was gigantic still, but big guy. Yeah. It's an inside joke. That's what everybody loves. Everyone loves inside jokes. So no, but for me, I remember doing an indie show at one point. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was on the card and had the opportunity. There's one DDP was on there. And with those, I know, especially with Hacksaw, he just kind of sat back and just answered questions from earlier in the afternoon through while matches were happening. He was just nonstop talking to just young indie talent about anything, any questions we possibly had. And I almost got the vibe, like, I feel like he would have watched all the matches, but unfortunately it was an outdoor event and there was no monitor or anything. And it was like, we were in a tent, like off the side, you couldn't see anything when you looked out. But so I would have to imagine for those people in ECW who are coming up, and obviously, you know, Meanie and Joel will be able to speak to it more with ECW, but I would have to imagine it's kind of the same thing, but you've got a guy like Terry Funk coming in there, and especially for ECW, as opposed to just another small indie, you're trying to build something, you know, something is coming. And that's this like seal of approval to have a guy like Terry Funk there, and to have, you know, Jimmy Snuka there. And we saw what that did for Tommy Dreamer being able to kick out of the splash. And, you know, these are things that, no matter how talented somebody is, you could have picked the greatest wrestler in the world to face Tommy Dreamer, but that name value of Jimmy Snuka is what took it to the next level. So I think it's huge. And I know for me, it was always this, like, it was monumental. It made the little indie show that I was working feel so much bigger. And we would have that, like Meanie mentioned, OVW, you know, we would be doing a show in OVW and all of a sudden, you know, CM Punk would show up just to work the dark match after the OVW TV back when he was like ECW, WWECW champion. But something like that, when you're just doing your show and CM Punk walks in, all of a sudden everybody's just like, okay, today is important. Even though nothing else has changed, he's just doing a dark match. Today's extra important because we know, you know, this show is going to be remembered more. People are going to remember this experience more.
You want to go, Joe? I feel like I hijacked some of these answers.
Oh no, it's always a blast when, you know, people that you grew up admiring, you know, your own icons and your own kind of indirect mentors. I mean, gosh, we got that stamp of approval and that validity from guys like Jim Cornette and Lawler. I was loving it the most when Jake Roberts showed up. We had Bob Backlund come through. We had Dusty Rhodes, Scott Hall. When guys like those are around, it's immeasurable. I mean, really, it's an invaluable resource when they start just, you know, even if they're just, you know, bringing up whatever just for the sake of, you know, thwarting their own boredom. And they just feel like talking because there's nothing else to do. But the wisdom and the gems and the pearls that you can get, even in moments of their downtime, is just, you know, you can't place a price tag on it.
In my situation, it's, you know, it's a formula I took when I started running my own shows with 3PW in Philadelphia after ECW had folded. You bring in some names, some name talent to get people through the door, but once they're there through the door, they're there to, they get, you know, exposed to newer talent that they can root behind, and then, you know, slowly but surely your homegrown talent becomes the stars along with the name talent. Fortunate for me, when I first, you know, started wrestling, I started doing shows for Sabu. Sabu was bringing in some of the ECW guys. So by the time I got to ECW, guys like Taz, Dreamer, and of course Sabu was familiar with me. And I had done a show with Mick Foley before I went in ECW. I was his first match after him and Funk had that death match in Japan where he burned up his arm. So I'm wrestling him, he's got his arm bandaged up and stuff like that. So when I got to ECW, he remembered me from that match. and kind of took me and Stevie under his wing, so to speak. I always talk about how Tracy Smothers being a veteran leader in the locker room and helping me and most of the young guys in that locker room. But if it wasn't for Mick Foley taking me and Stevie aside and, making them part of his matches, like the first ever Cactus Jack Jericho match in Queens, New York, he had me and Stevie at ringside. He just wanted to do the Fargo strut with us and stuff like that. So he did that. And then he included us in on his farewell, and we did the Rockettes kick and stuff like that. And, he made the younger talent, much like Terry Funk made younger talent. Jimmy Snuka made Tommy Dreamer with that splash off the top rope and letting him kick out of his finisher, which nobody had seen. So, to be in the locker room with older talent is great from in ring and then behind the scenes, because there's so many different people to learn from. Raven would pull guys into a classroom and have a class and watch, continental wrestling and teach psychology and stuff like that. So it's always good to have the veterans around. And that's why I kind of worry about with, some of the guys coming up, do they have those veterans on the indie scene now and stuff like that? Because if certain things aren't continued, they'll cease to be, as far as, wrestling, psychology and all that stuff.
Meanie, you said something about, what we mentioned before with Superfly hitting the Superfly splash and how important that was with Dreamer kicking out. But it's something I think it was Joey Carr had said about and if it wasn't you, I apologize, but somebody had asked the question about, all the kicking out, all the false finishes and all this kicking out of the finish. And that part of what made that so important and what made Tommy Dreamer in that night, or at least began to make Tommy Dreamer, was because that didn't happen ever. Like that just did not happen. But if it was today, yeah, you'd have the announcers go, "My God, I can't believe he just kicked out of the Superfly splash." And everyone would be like, "All right, like, here we go." Well, I guess maybe it'll be the second one or the third one that'll do it, And so I think it just kind of reminded me of that previous question. I think it really is a perfect example of what you were just talking about, is a perfect example of why, in my opinion, at least, they need to cut that out, that false finish. There's nothing wrong with a false finish if the false finish is a different move, but your finish should be your finish, in my opinion. That's just how, it's how I was raised by Papa Al. But that's my opinion on it. But it just made me think of a previous question. So sorry to step all over your toes.
No, you added to it, so
that's what I'm here for.
Definitely.
That was awesome.
I love you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
False finish is something that's been talked about a lot, particularly on Arn's podcast. So there are a lot of opinions about that in our little community here. So again, we saw some of that last night. So anyway, thank you guys for filling us in on that. Up next is Mr. Carl Mandic.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. So I'm going to start with this. You guys had brought up, and this is, we're not going to get into football fodder here, but Mr. Meanie, I just feel like there's something I see in you, and it comes from another Jersey boy, not the musical. DDP, he really changed a lot of lives, balancing, figuring out people's chakras, right? What if you taught Nick Sirianni, the new coach of the Eagles, how to cut a promo? Or give a press conference? Like, you could have your own, it could be like a whole thing, right?
Hey, I don't care what he says behind the microphone in an auditorium full of nobody. Win football games. That's all I care about. Yep. So, it's funny. Again, I could talk about anything, but we, in Philly, we got Charlie Manuel as our head coach, and everybody murdered him because they say he was this stumbling, bumbling hillbilly running the team, and he won us a World Series. So I don't care what anybody says in the press conferences. Just win the fucking game. What I'm saying?
Just win.
Yes.
Just win, baby. All right. And now I'm going to go to the
coach him a little bit. I could coach him a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just, a couple pointers.
He's taking it from me, so yeah, why not?
Could work. So I want to say this with all respect to anybody's religion, and I'm being serious for a second as far as this question goes, because it's a sensitive topic, and I don't want to ask it in the wrong way.
My religion is wrestling.
Okay, well, there we go. Then you are the priest, you are the rabbi, you are the shaman I've been looking for. The apology from Raven.
Yeah.
After everything. Should it have been Raven? Heyman? Should have been, or I should say Paul. Should he have gone out there? Should there have been an apology? Had you ever seen an apology? And I asked that for this reason. Did it stoke the fire a little bit in the sense that they're coming back out to recognize this? We have to say something. Can you, what school of thought are you under? And I didn't want to, I'm asking a difficult question only because I'm not trying to play the what if game. It's just something that is always kind of interests me of why it was Raven, not Paul, or if there ever has been an apology like that since or before.
Well, since I was one of the culprits in that situation, with putting Raven on, putting Sandman on the cross. I'm pretty sure I could say I'm confident that the apology happened because Kurt Angle was there, and he kind of made a little bit more of it, and they were trying to woo him to come to ECW. He had been done some I don't know if he had turned down WWE yet, but he definitely had interest in wrestling, and he was doing stuff locally in Pittsburgh. Should they have apologized in that situation? And I just said they probably did because of Kurt, but also that crowd reaction was, you could have heard a mouse pissing on cotton. Just everybody just went so quiet. So that was like one of the few times I actually saw the crowd. It's hard to shut up a Philly crowd. So to be able to shut up a Philly crowd must have means you did something, whether it's right or wrong. The apology, I always hate to say apologize for your art, but that's probably maybe the second time I've seen ECW do an apology. The first time was they had a god awful show in the early days of Eastern Championship Wrestling called Blood Feast. And, the crowd started chanting blood least because there was no bloody matches or whatever. So they gave the next day's TV tapings. They're like, everybody just come to the TV tapings for free. That was their apology. Sorry, the show sucked. Come to our tapings for free tomorrow. But that's a heavy topic, I've seen people do crazier things and not apologize, but hindsight being 2020, everybody's an expert with hindsight 2020 vision. It's hard to say. I know Raven made it as insincerely sincere, but okay, here's where I'm going to stand. I'm putting my foot down. Probably shouldn't have apologized because the apology came across as insincere as Raven could put it, so. And, Paulie, quote unquote, didn't know it was going to happen, which who knows if he did or not. But, probably shouldn't have. Probably could have done something on TV and addressed it that way, or not show it at all and pretend it didn't happen. I don't know. It's, I just know once we got back to the locker room, the atmosphere was a little bit heavy. So, we got kind of, some side eyes and stuff like that. And, I'm a year and a couple months into the business. I was just going along with, what Raven wanted to do. And I figured it was all okayed. And once the locker room reacted, I was like, that's kind of heavy. So, probably shouldn't have, but, who knows, again, you don't want to trample on somebody else's beliefs too. So I can see why they would want to apologize as well.
I think that's kind of almost the answer.
Yeah.
Is if you're a religious person, then it was, if that offended you, it offended you, right? If you're not a religious person and it didn't offend you at all, then you're like, why do you need an apology? So I think it really depended on who was in the audience at that point. Although what you said, Meanie, that always struck me as it would have been so much easier to get a sincere apology from from Paul Heyman,
and
putting that heat on, because the heat was being placed on Raven no matter what, right?
Right.
It was all like Raven's coming out. I apologize, whatever. Paulie knew nothing about it. It's all the heat on Raven. Well, instead of having Raven come out and apologize, have Paul come out there and do his shtick, which, you know, he can sell ice to an Eskimo. So have him go and tell everybody how sorry he is, how this is terrible, and Raven, all that. And Raven's going to be immediately fined, and, you know, and we're going to look into possible suspension or whatever. Yeah, some kind of BS like that. That kind of keeps all that heat on Raven, and takes off the company.
I would have done one even better. I would have had Todd go out, because Todd has a more, you know, Todd is more of a personal relationship with that crowd, because everybody knows Todd from Tri-State. They know him from, you know, ECW, you know, they know Paul, but they know Todd better, you know, so it's
especially at that time.
Yeah. Todd is God, you know, so, you know, fans would chant, you know, I think people would have accepted it a little bit more coming from Todd. I think Todd could have put that fire out much quicker than Raven's non-apology.
I like that Raven did it though.
Yeah.
There's a, you know, there's a cynical part.
To me, there's no wrong answer.
There's no wrong answer, and none of us know. None of us are the ones, like, it's above all of our pay grade. Like, we're just, it's conjecture from all of us. But after the fact, I think, not to put myself in the, not to put words in your mouth of you who's asking the question at all to us, but it seems like this question is probably more likely being asked because it was Raven that did it than that it was Paul or Todd that did it. And it's possible that the apology was for all the right reasons and for all of the reasons that make sense or matter. It's just as likely that this was a case where Raven is the most layered, intricate, complex, and detailed character on the roster, and he's coming out there for a part of the show that, unlike most of the rest of the show, won't be shown on the weekly television. And he's out there breaking the fourth wall, and he's out there out of character. And then that becomes the kind of thing where, oh, you should have went to the arena. They did something that was so extreme that Raven came out as Scott Levy and blah. So I you know, it could have been any number of things that led to it being Scotty that came out and gave the apology the way he did. I think only Paul and Scotty would be the people who know the why and the what, you know, all of it.
I think Scotty said they wanted to do a Star David, but they're afraid Sandman would roll away.
I appreciate you guys. That's a very tough question, and Joel, I really appreciate I do appreciate the way you just put it. Complex, layered, and intricate. And let's face it, that was ECW, and that's why we're here. How many years later, still talking about it? So that was. Thank you guys for all that. I know it's not. I don't really brought down the crowd, Mandic. Get out of here,
Carl. I got a question.
Thank you for thanking us.
Thank you.
Carl, I have a question for you, Mandic.
Yes.
These three shit the bed on their podcast. Who makes the public apology?
Oh, wow. Yeah, boy. That one got
Who's on the other foot now, huh, man?
You guys can't do like a barbershop quartet deal? You think that'd be insincere? Three Stooges, like, type of thing. I guess I would have to answer. And I mean, we see the logo. I guess it has to be Meanie. I guess, like, you kind of like, it's the face. But see, then I'm going with Paul on that one. Yeah, there is no right answer. That was I should have just summed up with that.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us tonight, Carl. Good to see you. Frank Bruno, it's good to see you as well.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of a power outage here, so I'm working on a generator, so I can't really put my video on.
Oh, man.
Commitment. He's still here, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're still here. Terrible that you don't have power.
Yeah, I mean, I have enough power to get here because that's what I wanted to. Because you guys are having great conversations, but unfortunately, I'm probably going to bring the conversation down.
Let's do it.
Worse than Jesus Christ.
Man.
Well, so I just got done watching the video podcast part of it.
Okay.
And one thing that stuck out to me Joel Gertner, how the fuck are you wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars shirt?
Why would I not? I've been a fan of the Jaguars since day zero, since the inception of the team and the announcement of the team and the first 10 guys they drafted back in the Tom Coughlin days. And yeah, man, I've been a fan for 25 or 30 years now. So why wouldn't I? Plus, I was Joey Jaguar on the Indies before I ever got to ECW.
Oh, because I love you, dude. Let me tell you, I still walk around and will, like, there's one of your, I can't remember exactly which event it was, but you ended it with "the fountains come when they lick my balls," Gertner, and I still use that. So, but when I saw that, I was like, I gotta talk to Joel today. I gotta just make sure he knows to tighten the fuck up. And
Frank, if I may, though,
yeah,
right, this is Frank. If I may, there's always a chance that a lifelong ECW fan who happens to run a pretty large wrestling company right now could be watching. So maybe Joel was like, maybe I'll wear my Jaguars shirt, and
well, there you go.
I get the phone call. So
But then you know what? But if that's the case, you could spin yarn out of anything. Like maybe I'm wearing my Crab Cake City Jimmy's famous seafood shirt because they love Meanie and they love me and we love them. And everybody who listens and watches our product loves all of the Jimmys that they eat. And maybe this is a subliminal, subconscious message to our producer, Josh Shernoff, to get on the horn and call them for a possible sponsorship. I'm not going to wear this shirt every month. It's got to go in the wash sometime. You know what I mean? So you could spin yarn about anything.
Just taking an unrelated note real quick.
Yeah. I just wanted, I thank you guys. I just wanted to bust some nuggets. So
that's all good.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So basically what he just said was he watched you guys on video and then his power promptly went out. And I have a feeling the Lord was doing some work at Frank Bruno's house because
you can't top this.
There you go. Also, since we're shilling everything, get your ad-free shows calendar and all of your ad-free shows merch at boxofgimmicks.com. They're not paying me to be here, people, but here we are. All right. Joshua Odom, what you got for us today?
Hey guys, I wanted to circle back to the false finish question. I want to go in a different direction because I had a question. At what point in time?
You want to change the finish? Go ahead.
No, I don't. I do want to change the finish. At what point in time was it paramount that you had to have a finisher and a finisher was needed in the match? I mean, some of the great classic matches, Chi-Town Rumble was one with a small package. Brett and Owen was won by a victory roll thing. There was so many unexpected where a match could end at any point in time. Now we're so conditioned to not only see the finish, but how many times is the false finish going to happen? So I'm interested in, was that pushed in at wrestling schools or where did that dynamic change? Because it was kind of in that early 90s that transition started to happen.
Well, when I was a kid,
go ahead.
When I was a kid, everybody's conditioned for the big boot leg drop or the Jimmy Superfly splash that, or Jake, hitting the short arm clothesline and signaling for the DDT. I've Superstar Billy Graham. Ken Patera did the full Nelson. That was his finish. People always had finishes,
Yeah, I think that you talk about like Brett and Owen, like the victory roll, right? Yeah. I think that's why that worked so well, is because you're thinking the whole time, who's locking the sharpshooter on, right? Like that's your mindset the whole time is, what's going to happen here? Is Owen going to kick his leg out from under his leg again? Like who knows what's going to happen? So, but I think that's, the small package or the victory roll or the backslide. We saw a backslide. I want to say, was it SummerSlam, Drew and Randy Orton? Yeah. I think because we've got, I love that because you look at it and you say, okay, it's going to be this move or it's got to be that move. Those are the ones you're looking for. And you're getting all those false finishes where they're kicking out of this and they're kicking out of that. Well, now you cradled them and it's, the most legit wrestling hold you can do. Yeah. You cradle them and it's done. So, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously Meanie's significantly older than I am, but, I don't know if, how it was back then, if they had the finishes or not, but I know for me, like I grew up, there were always finishes in wrestling.
Sometimes,
yeah, I mean, there
sometimes
was
you
always
have the finish. Sometimes you have the finish. Sometimes you have the Swedish.
Yeah, I mean, there was always finishes. I mean, finishers have been involved in there, but every match didn't always end with a finisher. There were still pins and stuff there. I mean, things happen. I guess it was not very. I mean, it seems like a match anymore has to end with a finish, and normally it's after 5 of them where
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, I mean, finishers have been around. Yeah, as Meanie was saying, going back to the 70s and before.
But having a finisher is a good way to go. Look over here, look over here, look over here, and then you sneak in the inside cradle. The element of surprise. You can have the anticipation of knowing that the finisher's coming and that it happens, or the fact that somebody goes for it and it backfires on them. Like Brett going for a sharpshooter, roll him up real quick, 1, 2, 3. One of my favorite finishers is, Diesel picking up Brett and he hits the quick inside cradle, 1, 2, 3, and Diesel pops up and goes, motherfucker, because it was just so out of nowhere, But
yeah, same thing. Brett goes for the victory roll and Owen steps in there and cradles him. I mean, those were so,
yeah.
I think that's an element that I wish I'd see more of that sneak back in.
But again, if you remember, Brett won the King of the Ring with that victory roll on Bam Bam, right?
Yeah, that was, the next pay-per-view. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, was it the next pay-per-view or was it the year before? I think it was the year before.
No, that was,
it was the year.
You are right. That's 90. Yeah. That would have been 93.
And I don't know if it's just coincidence or not, but you're looking at, here's that move that Brett has. He won the King of the Ring with it. This is okay. He's not going to do a sharpshooter, but okay, we see where this is going. And then, but again, and maybe we're talking a lot about Brett, but if you look at SummerSlam 92, hit the finish with the British Bulldog. Was another one, just a sunset flip gone wrong, So, so I think I would love to see. I always love seeing that. So yeah, I don't know if there was a shift with it because we're definitely pulling out some old. Maybe there's just so much more wrestling nowadays.
I've seen a couple of matches, finisher versus finisher stipulation matches, where forget the pinfall, the first guy to execute his finishing maneuver would be the winner. And then the heat is, all of the drama is not in the actual, is this going to be a 2 count or a 3 count after the finish, but it's actually in the reversals that come from guys countering the other guy's finishing move.
I will say, back in my day, it was hard enough coming up with one finish, and now guys are just hitting 80 in like one match. I'm like, Jesus Christ, save some for the honeymoon. It's fuck.
Yeah, the art of less is more has gone out the window.
Yeah.
Hey, can I say I love your background situation you have there?
Oh, thank you.
Very
really very cool.
Yes,
it's become a theme, so I feel like I have to step it up each Zoom.
No, that's awesome.
Greatly appreciate.
And hey, a quick shout out if I can. Sean Jones has that awesome new logo. Andy Slichter is the guy. He does a lot of logos for Meanie and I on our podcast. He threw that together way quicker than it looks like he did. Like, he is super talented. So just wanted to give a shout out to him. I don't know if he'll see this or not, but a shout out to him because I am in love with that new logo. It is so cool. I mean, he got my eyebrows perfect, and but it's just such a really cool logo that he did, and I think it just brings so much more character. He actually did That Was Extreme logo as well, just the font of it, but I think it just brings so much more character and excitement to the show. So I just wanted to give credit where it was due.
Yeah, absolutely. I like all the graphic designs. I'm not a graphic designer, but I can do cool shit with other people's work.
There you go. Shernoff, I wanted to get with you after the show and talk about those eyebrows.
What? What did you say?
You do have really great eyebrows. I wanted to, get some secrets from you. I don't know if you've had like micro needling or anything.
No, I grow them myself. And I just hope for the best every day.
I love the awkward Shernoff and Lauren interaction. That's going to be my favorite part of these.
His eyebrows are impressive. Okay. I like
Thank you.
I'm going to link up on Twitter and get some tips from you. Guys, if you don't mind, we have about 3 more questions. So I hope that's cool. I'm kicking it over to Anthony.
Hey guys, back for question number 2, and I got to tell you, Josh, I'm jealous. It's the dream of most men for Laura to say they want to get with them after the Zoom meeting, so I appreciate that. Joel, Mr. Joey Carr in our chat wanted us to apologize on behalf of the fact that he called you Gertner instead of Joel. He found that disrespectful. Make sure he apologized to you. I want to make sure I got to him, so that was the case. But I do want to get back.
That's what it says on all of the upcoming T-shirts that are going to be.
I do want to get back to the night the line was crossed. My favorite story that was told of that show was the Tommy Dreamer Jimmy Snuka match. At the time, he was the former, T.D. Madison with the suspenders and the good looks. Serious question. How close do you think, and I'm not sure if you guys have any firsthand knowledge, if you do, please share it. How close was Tommy to that WCW WWE contract?
Probably. I'm trying to think of what year I was around, but I'm sure there was talks. I wouldn't doubt that there was talks because he had, connections there. Either when I doubt was, well, it definitely wasn't when Ty Gordon was the mole trying to get people to flee from ECW, WCW. But I'm pretty sure afterwards when Raven went to, WCW, maybe they tried to lure him over to continue to feud over into WCW. But I don't doubt what he says as far as them trying to get to him, because he had to have a look. He had that look for WWE, WCW. He had a great look.
I apologize for the Jewish Irish exit to the party, but I barely tapped one of my buds in my ear, and that wound up being the boomer maneuver of the week.
Guys, all three of you, thank you for the show. Lauren, thank you for hosting this. This is a great thing.
Thank you. Thank you for watching.
I appreciate the feedback, because you go into this blind and it's like, here you go. And
it's a blast. It's a real treat for us here. Believe me.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
We're having a great time over here. Tom Brady's going to have a terrible time after the Super Bowl when he loses. So thank you again, Paris, for joining us. Michael McClanahan, our resident baby boy. How are you, my honey?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Upright.
Welcome back.
Not quite 25 years old, but I'm okay. Still trying to process.
I'm never going to live that one down, am I?
Yeah, that you come on and you start bragging, hey, I'll still be alive when you're probably dead and whatever. But I mean, aside from all that, I'm doing all right.
Well, keeping all that in mind, my question was going back to our discussion about kind of legends and working with younger talent. Who do you think in the past 10 years, if you had to pick one legend, has done a good job with their comeback of actually really working with younger talent well and kind of, doing the favors for them? To me, the person that comes to mind immediately is The Rock in his program with John Cena, because it was a quick program. They each got one win, and at the end of the day, John Cena, The Rock kind of passed the torch to John Cena. So I was just wondering, who do you guys think are some legends that really do a good job of getting back into the business for the right reasons to really help out younger talent?
You want to go first, you guys?
Joel, yeah, go.
Josh, go, man.
All right. I guess, I think that you might end up seeing that with Edge as time goes on. Because I know from just listening to his podcast that he had a few years ago, he would always talk about like Aleister Black as somebody that he just wishes he could get in the ring with. And so I could easily see him doing that. Rey Mysterio is someone, if we're talking, he didn't leave wrestling, but he left WWE. And I think since he's been back, he kind of did his part in the, carve someone's eyeball out to win the match thing with Seth Rollins. But trying to think, that's a great question though.
I'll throw in Matt Hardy.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He's been there, done that, and he's doing great stuff now, with younger talent and stuff like that. So yeah, Matt Hardy definitely is one of the guys who's giving back.
Depending how you measure, like depending on what level and how you want your question answered. I mean, just came to mind for me right now, guys like Tommy Dreamer and Rhino on Impact. But week to week as things evolve and as new matches and feuds happen, I think I hope that more of it continues to happen in the wrestling business where established older stars do pass that torch.
Okay, passing the torch. We could talk about this Goldberg match, but we won't. WMD himself had another question for us.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Still doing great.
Oh, that's good. So I actually was going to talk about that. I want to play devil's advocate because I was really happy that Edge won the Royal Rumble, but I've also seen some criticisms that oh, okay, of course the old guy won. Why are people complaining about Goldberg, but then Edge wins? So how is that different? I guess, what's your opinion about that if we can armchair quarterback it and whatnot?
I don't get the criticism. I mean, Edge pretty much had to go away because of, his neck,
Yeah, my thoughts exactly.
fear of paralysis, but through the wonders of modern medicine, he was able to come back. And holy shit, Christian came back too last night. So I don't know how permanent that is, but
yeah,
one time thing or whatever. I don't know. I don't know why Goldberg gets the criticism, but I think a lot of those guys who come back strictly as attractions get more criticism as opposed to the guys who are always there. I think Edge is back for good, but I'm not sure, Edge would have went away if he, hadn't had that issue,
I think if I can piggyback off of that, I think that
Please.
There's definitely something to be said for that. Goldberg comes in and does, spear, attempted jackhammer and, and spear, and that's it. Edge has come back and unfortunately got injured. And who knows what we would have been looking at for the last year with Edge had he A, not been injured, and B, we weren't in a pandemic where I'm sure he signed to a select number of dates. They weren't going to use those in an empty building. Outside of WrestleMania, of course, ended up having to be that. But that match that he had, and I know there's been a lot of criticism, his match with Orton, but at Mania for dragging going on so long, but he took a beating for sure in that match. And then his other match with Orton that he's had. And I just think as he continues to be there and if he stays healthy, you're going to see the Edge of old. You're going to see that athlete. Whereas I feel like with Goldberg, Goldberg once upon a time was doing these kicks that, save for one really terrible kick at Starrcade. He was doing these side kicks. He was doing the rolls into like a kind of a leg scissors. And he had different moves that he would do. Goldberg had an arsenal. He was never a great wrestler, but he had more that he could do. And I think what Meanie's saying is Goldberg being brought back as this, the legend who just hits his two moves and that's it, I think does a disservice to him. And I think does a disservice to his legacy. But I also think that that's why everybody heaps that on him. Also, you look at it on the other side, Edge just won the Royal Rumble. Yeah. Goldberg showed up and said, "Hey guys, I'd like to be champion." And I understand that's not on Goldberg. Goldberg didn't literally show up and do that. That's a character. And I get that. But from a character standpoint and a presentation on television, Goldberg walks down the aisle on a Legends night and you're next. Okay. Well, I get you were champion before, but the last time we saw you, you lost and you should go to the back of the line. So it was all kind of confusing. I love the fact that Drew won. And I think that that's what Goldberg should be there for. He should be doing things like that. But yeah, that would be my feeling is that Edge is, Edge is only 47. And, unlike Meanie, he's a very young 47. So, I think that for him, he probably still would have been wrestling at this point, maybe just starting to wind down had he never gotten injured.
Mhm.
So I think it's kind of, I get what you're saying completely, but I think it's the specific nature of who the people are, which is why you're getting different reactions to it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, I'm really glad that Edge is back in wrestling. It really sucked when he had to retire due to injury. So it's just, yeah, I just seen that that's a lot of the whole, it's the part-timer versus full-timer thing. Oh, why, I feel like, again, I'm not a wrestler. I haven't drawn a damn dime, so I don't, understand that thing. But I feel like, you kind of need the older people to elevate the younger people, if that makes any sense. Again, I'm just some, jerk off from Minnesota. So what do I know?
Well, I'm some jerk off in South Philly. So
Yeah, I'm a douchebag from Brooklyn. So.
I didn't know anybody outside of South Philly, New York that said jerk off. So that's look at this guy. He's a fucking jerk off.
I'm a gentleman from the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Yeah,
that's a lie.
Yeah.
No, I live in the suburbs. No, but you know what? I think what you're saying, I honestly agree with you. And I think, you can say that, yeah, you haven't been in the ring, but you're a fan. And that's really, they're not writing the shows for people who have been in the ring. They're writing the shows for the fans. I also think it's it's this weird way of looking at it. Cause if you have your favorite television show and one of your favorite characters from 10 seasons ago comes back now, and they're not back as a permanent member of the cast, but they're going to pop in every once in a while. Dude, you're so happy. You're so happy that character is back. You're so happy that any scene you get out of them. But with wrestling, I think the fans, because they have so much love and respect for the talent, I think the fans tend to almost be like, well, that's our guy who's here all the time, and we know what they're putting their bodies through. But having said that, I mean, you look at these people, whether it's Edge, whether it's Goldberg, they did their time, and that's something I think sometimes bothers me when people are like, oh, they're part-timers. It's like, yeah, but they were running themselves into the ground in the 90s. That wasn't an easy time to be a wrestler. So
I prefer attraction over part-timer because, I like Goldberg coming back, but keep him out of the title picture. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Like he could, help somebody else and not be in the title picture. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, guys.
Thank you, WMD himself. I want to point out while we're talking about old wrestlers, Brock Lesnar and AJ Styles are both 43 years old, and nobody's complaining about either of them. So anyway, just pointing out that little fun fact. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. I think we are about ready to wrap it up. I want you guys to tell all of your friends about That Was Extreme, our podcast available for free on adfreeshows.com. But experiences like this, you only get these when you join as a My Push or a Top Guy member for adfreeshows.com. Come check it out. Again, we're doing this on the first of the month, every month. And Joel Gertner, I have some news for you.
Ooh.
At the top of the show, you proposed 2 names for this after show event. And since then, I've had about a shot and a half of liquor, and I am only able to pronounce one of the 2 names. And so the winner is going to have to be That Was Extra.
Nice. Love
awesome.
it.
I'll pass the news along to Conrad. He'll be okay with it. It's all good. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to tell everybody about adfreeshows.com. And guys, Shernoff, Blue Meanie, Joel Gertner, tell us where to find you on the internet.
On the all across social media, you can find me at Blue Meanie BWO. You can find our podcast, Mind of the Meanie, which drops every Monday morning at 6 a.m. At Mind of the Meanie. You can also go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Mind of the Meanie. I try to keep it simple for you. If you would like to support the Blue Meanie, go to prowrestlingtees.com/Blue Meanie. You can get yourself one of these old school BWO shirts. And I try to keep up with the current things, for everything from sports to ECW themed shirts. I survived the ECW arena shirts, stuff like that. So go over to prowrestlingtees.com/Blue Meanie and show Meanie some love.
Josh.
Okay. So yes, as Meanie said, at Mind of the Meanie every Monday, a new episode drops. We just dropped today, as we're recording this, our 45th episode of the podcast. And I think we're just starting to get good. But no, we're having a blast over there. So definitely check that out. I also have a show called So Says Shernoff on Fight. Every single month, it's a wrestling satirical news show. So I kind of make fun of wrestling a little bit. And then I have guests on. Just had Ian Riccoboni on for a great interview. I've had Ad Free Show's very own Dr. Tom on, which was awesome. So it's a lot of fun. Definitely check that out if you would be so kind. And you can follow me on social media at So Says Shernoff, and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you would be kind enough, which is youtube.com/So Says Shernoff.
Okay, but
audio question. Can you guys still hear me?
What's that?
I said, Shernoff, hook me up with your eyebrow lady, though.
Yeah, it's Mother Nature, I guess. So we'll
Joel
talk about
Gertner,
that.
Where are you on the internet?
For me, I do a podcast called the 69-Minute Eargasm. Please do check that out. I have a YouTube channel under my own name, Joel Gertner. Please subscribe to that. If the Lord of Professional Wrestling, Gotch, him or herself, should create an 8th day, and I am no longer schedulally handcuffed, and I can create an ECW weekly show called Extreme Championship Wednesdays that I have been promising alongside with Conrad's blessing for the last 2 or 3 years, I will do so. But until that 69-minute eargasm is the podcast alongside this one. And that's about it. Twitter is Stud Muffin Says. Instagram is Quintessential Stud Muffin. I also am on Pro Wrestling Tees at Joel Gertner, and I also am on Cameo, Joel Gertner.
Joel, baby, I'm afraid I cannot spell quintessential at this time. I'm going to need you to find me on Instagram. Otherwise, everybody's going to give you guys all our love on Twitter. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I do want to, if I can, I want to say one more thing because we forgot to say it. At That Was Extreme on Twitter. We might want to put that over. Yeah, so follow us on Twitter.
Always on time. Always
yeah, at That Was Extreme. It's this little show we do over on Ad Free Shows once a month. So yeah, please follow us on there, and also prowrestlingtees.com/That Was Extreme. We should have a few new shirts up there in the next day or so. Yeah. Okay. That's all.
You know what I would love for y'all that are watching and listening to do for fun, just like to just go viral and just to like see how far up the flagpole we could push it, and to make Josh Shernoff's life just a little bit easier, like he needs that, is reach out to the fine people at Jimmy's Famous Seafood and let them know that a one-off is not what they need from me and Meanie and Josh. Let them know how much you would love it if beyond this week we could continue to put over their high-quality product, and let them know that you would love it if they would be our first regular sponsor.
Woohoo! I agree.
I like that plan. Joel, I'm going to be really honest. Sometimes hearing you talk, you could say anything and it sounds like a threat.
Or a promise.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
I love it. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We are, as always, at Ad Free Shows and at adfreeshows.com. Check us out. We'll see you next time. Thank you guys. Good night.
Thank you.